From Iraq, the world's getting tales, distressing ones, of slaughter and destruction, this time targeting one of the world's oldest Christian communities. Ancient monasteries and churches razed, Iraqis by the tens of thousands forced to flee their ancestral homes. France has publicly pledged humanitarian assistance and to take in those Christians. Whether that's an open invitation to settle in this country is still open to interpretation. So is the idea that some have voiced, why just Christians? It's not just them the Islamist radicals of the Islamic State are targeting in Iraq and Syria. Shiites and also moderate Sunnis are fair game. It's more than dissent that jihadists are targeting. You could call it a totalitarian design to wipe out pluralism. Why do confessional divides seem to be growing so strongly in that part of the world? Today in the France 24 debate, we're looking at the plight of Iraq's Christians. With us, Christelle Yalap of the Committee to Support Iraq's Christians, the CSCI.
Yeah.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Thanks as well, back from Baghdad, New York Times Paris Bureau Chief Elisa Johansen-Rubin. Thank you for joining us. And thanks as well to attorney Ardavan Amir Aslani, author of Islam and the West. Welcome back to the show, sir.
Thank you so much.
From London, French Senator Nathalie Goulet joins us. Thank you for being with us here in the debate. The France 24 debate, where you can join the conversation on Facebook and on Twitter. Our hashtag F24debate. Now, in Iraq's second city, the choice for 35,000 faithful: convert, leave, or die. Let's begin with a report by Haxi Myers-Belkin.
Mosul's famous Nabi Yunus shrine razed to the ground in seconds. Witnesses say that the site was closed off, rigged with explosives, and then detonated. Built on the reputed burial site of the prophet known in the Quran as Yunus and as Jonah in the Bible, this mosque, almost 3,000 years old, was destroyed by ISIS militants last Thursday. The Islamic State of Syria and the Levant, which preaches an extreme interpretation of Islam, captured the northern city of Mosul in June. The attack coincides with the deadlines of a series of ultimatums for Christians in the city. Messages such as leave Mosul or die, and commands to either convert to Islam or pay jizya, attacks levied on non-Muslim men, were the messages blasted through megaphones at residents for the past week. This woman, like many Christians, fled to Erbil, the capital of Iraqi Kurdistan. Speaking on condition of anonymity, she recalls life under ISIS rule.
We had to stay at home. We prayed at home because we didn't dare go to church. We didn't know what we would encounter when we went outside. I wore a veil when I was outside to prevent them from speaking to me or harassing me. I wore a veil every time I went outside.
Until their forced exodus over the weekend, Christians had been continuously present in Mosul since 400 AD.
Christelle Yalap, what news is your organization getting from Iraq?
Actually, our committee is getting in touch with the priests that are in Iraq and mainly in Erbil. The situation is that as at today, we just have maybe 1, 2, or 3 families still staying in Mosul that are Christians. Just before the beginning of June, so before the ISIS comes to Mosul and take the city, there were about 8,000 to 10,000 Christians there. And just before 2003, there were about 35,000 Christians there. As of today, they are going to Erbil, which is in Kurdistan, but once the jihadists, so the ISIS, knew that they were all there, they start to cut all the water, all the electricity. So actually there is a humanitarian disaster there because it is about 45 degrees there. They're all staying there.
Celsius, it's summertime, yeah.
And there is no water, no electricity. So they really do need humanitarian help.
Elisa Rubin, do you feel as though it's Christians in particular that are being singled out? This story suddenly has come to the fore.
Well, I think
there are many minority groups in northern Iraq, and some of them are smaller than the Christians even, and there also are a number of different Shiite groups that are smaller. There are Turkmen Shiites, and also the Shabak, who are sort of a particular group and often aligned with Shia, and they're also really being persecuted and killed. And I mean, in some senses, at least the Christians did have a chance to flee, but it was under horrific circumstances for them. But I think this is a very frightening time, for there's this rich cultural landscape across northern Iraq, and it's being decimated. I mean, it's almost gone.
We forget that there were Christians there before there were Muslims, of course, since Islam...
And other groups as well, Yazidis and Mandians, and I mean, these are very small, not even Christian sects.
The Christian out there, like they're the indigenous people from Iraq, because they're there since 6,700 years. I'm talking about the Chaldean, before they become Christian. They're there, and now they're the Christians. But they're more than 6,000.
And you yourself are a Chaldean. Explain to us what a Chaldean is.
The Chaldean it was at the time of the Mesopotamia. You had a part of Mesopotamia which was called the Chaldee, which was mainly Iraq, but they were part of Iran and Syria and Turkey also. But mainly it was Iraq. Just to give maybe people will more understand, if you know a bit about religions, Abraham was born in Chaldee, so how to tell you how old is it. We today speak a language close to Aramaic, which is the first language which was written from the right to the left. So Arabic and also Hebrew are coming from Aramaic. So we are the last people in the world still speaking this language.
Last people in the world still speaking the language. Ardavan Amir Aslani, what are your thoughts on the timing of all of this? We saw a similar pattern, of course, take place in northern Mali when the Islamists took over there, wiping out anything that wasn't their particular brand of hardline Islam.
You're totally right. What we're witnessing in Iraq is a cultural tragedy, as it was pointed out, but it's also a human tragedy. The Christians are not, as you rightly pointed out, the only minority that's being targeted. At least they're getting a chance to run away or pay the religious tax to stay or remain behind or convert. These folks are targeting the Shia also and condemn them to death on the spot just for the sake of being a Shia. So you're dealing with today with the emergence of a movement that goes beyond a radical, fanatical religious movement. It's a cult. The Islamic State is a cult. And basically speaking, they have decided not to tolerate the presence of anyone, no matter where they come from, no matter which religious background they come from, as long as they do not adhere to this radical Sunni version of Islam that they personify, which does not accept any tolerance and does not accept the difference that may exist elsewhere.
Nathalie Goulet, how did we get to this?
Well, first of all, it's a nightmare, but we have to be grateful to Jacques Chirac, first of all, because he prevented us to enter in this illegal war. And then from an illegal war,
you're talking about the 2003 invasion of Iraq led by the United States.
Yeah, which was absolutely illegal. And then the country now is in a kind of gray zone without any governance, and here we are. So
what you're saying is that the blame for the chaos we're seeing lies first with the Americans?
Well, I mean, the Christians were safe under Saddam Hussein. I'm sorry to tell you that. And all the destabilization of the country and more, around all the region has to pay the consequences of this illegal war.
Yeah. Elisa Rubin, your thoughts on this?
Well, obviously there are many issues around the war in Iraq, and there are lots of feelings that illegal, and many questions, obviously, in the United States as well. But the sequence of events that led us to this particular moment in Iraq, I think it's hard to link in a straight line just to the war. We've had a period of immense upheaval in the Middle East that was not, I think that's very hard to trace directly to the Americans. The entire so-called Arab Spring, or all of those changes which created a situation, among other places, in Syria, which opened up the possibility for radical Sunni Islamists to begin to gain ground. And with that, then obviously they are the ones who moved into Iraq. Now it's a three doctoral theses to lay out the blame for what is happening there. But I would say it's quite a bit more complicated than
no, of course.
The war.
The Americans went into Iraq in 2003. That was 11 years ago. We haven't seen this kind of persecution, this kind of tragedy for the last 10 years in Iraq. What we're witnessing today is a specific instance whereby a group that did not exist 10 years ago has conquered parts of Iraq, declared its own nation, and is going after all the ethnic minorities. It is true, the Christians in Iraq had a better life under Saddam Hussein. There were 1 million Christians there. You have barely 400,000 today. It's true. But I mean, that doesn't imply that Saddam was a nice man, because we should also recall what he did to the Iraqi Shiites in the south and the Kurds that he gassed. That's not, what I'm trying to say is that the problem with the Christians in Iraq in particular, with both the Shia, as a matter of fact, and the Sunnis, as a matter of fact, is that in their mind, ever since 2003, they associate the Christians with the Crusaders personified by the Americans. So they always had a hard time in Iraq. What is different today is that you have this volcanic eruption of fanatical, intolerant, Wahhabi-styled Islam that is out there against anything and anybody that does not share their values and their faith. And that basically makes everyone else in Iraq a problem for these people.
Nathalie Goulet?
Yeah, no, I didn't, of course, I agree with what Rabbi Aslani said, but I didn't want to celebrate Saddam Hussein, but we have bases in this area, and then we have this destabilization and all the gray zone around, and all the weapon around, and all this Arab Spring who became Islamic autumns, and every part around has the same kind of systemic crisis. So I think that the Christian is really in a very bad situation now because of this destabilization and the fact that we cannot restore a state.
I just also want to point something, is that you're saying that since the last 10 years, nothing had happened to the Christians. That's not...
You didn't say nothing. The extent of extreme massacres that we were seeing today wasn't around.
Yeah, that's true.
Ago.
The extreme wasn't here. But if in 2003 there were about 1 million of Christians there, and as of today they're saying 400,000, but this is really optimistic. We really do think that this number is really optimistic. And also they have, since like the instability of this country brings by the war and other point, as you said, in 2008, if I remember, they have put some bombs, so explosions, in front of 7 churches the same day, true. Going out of church on the Sunday. So they're pointing, but the only thing is that the news and the politicals never want to talk about that subject of the Christian in Middle East or other minorities on those countries. And that's the reason why the CSCI is pushing since a month all the news in France and making actions, because the one in Paris wasn't the first one. We had the first one.
You had a rally outside of Notre Dame Cathedral.
Yes. This was prepared by the CSCI, and in a very short time they did prepare that in 4 days, so we are really happy to get 5,000 people there to support this cause. But this is not the first one. We've been starting in front of the French assembly. About 500 people were there just to say the issue. Then 2,000 people in Sarcelles, which is close to the city in France, where you have about 15,000 of Chaldeans there that are scared about the situation there. We hear stories since 2003 that are horrible, but now you're right. Now it's getting worse and worse.
I totally agree with you.
Wrong.
There has always been continuously, sorry, madam, there has been continuously persecution against Christians. For a fact, it hasn't stopped since the American invasion. But the extent of extremism that we're seeing today was not witnessed before. I mean, the Shia government didn't go out asking Christians either to convert or to die on the spot. The Shia didn't go after the Christians telling them, you either pay the jizya, religious tax, or we're going to rape and kill you. What is happening today, and this is what the news is all about, is that since the Islamic State conquered Mosul, the Christian population, along with all the other minorities that Madame kindly pointed out, have been specifically targeted by these radical intolerant people. There have been numerous cases of rape, numerous cases of mayhem mentioned out there. Thank God that Kurdistan Regional Authority is there and giving these people a safe haven for them to be able to survive. In 2003, if my numbers are correct, there were 65,000 Christians in Mosul before the American intervention. Now, you rightly pointed out, there are none. 3 families, 20 people, they've all left. They're on the run for their life.
Yeah, maybe, you rang the bell several times, and maybe we were not careful enough. I mean, we also are guilty, obviously, because those things didn't happen in one night, over one night. It's a long story, and you are absolutely right. And I think that maybe we didn't pay attention enough.
All right, when we come back, we're going to be looking at the West's reaction to this, and most notably that of France, which this week offered asylum to Iraqi Christians, and how that is going down with the communities there. Stay with us. You're watching the France 24 debate.